welcome to today's video, which I am super excited about because this is going to be my first ever splurge versus save video. So I'm going to be comparing two products, one that is high-end or luxury and the other one that is more affordable or a drugstore item. For today, I will be comparing the Natasha Denona Glam Palette to the brand new ColourPop That's Taupe palette. So I am going to open both of these up and you can see that these are both cool toned eyeshadow palettes. Now the Natasha Denona one retails for $65 and the ColourPop one retails for $14. Obviously the Natasha Denona one has more shades. This has 15 shades and the ColourPop one has 9 shades. So at $65 this will run you about $4.30 per eyeshadow, and the ColourPop one I believe is $1.50 per eyeshadow. So although this has much more shades, it's also much more expensive per eyeshadow. So because the Natasha Denona palette has more shades and some of the shades are different, I am going to insert swatches, but I'm going to put swatches of which shades are most similar. And then after that, we'll get into the demo and see how they both perform on my eyes. So first up, we have these pink shades. This is the center eyelid shade from the Natasha Denona palette. This is an inner corner shade from the Natasha Denona palette. And then this is Snake Eyes from the ColourPop palette. So you can see all three of these are pinks, but they are quite different. The Snake Eyes shade from the ColourPop palette is much more silver toned and cool toned. The pinks from the Natasha Denona palette are definitely true pinks, but they are warmer toned. So swatch, the ColourPop one almost looks more of like a silver champagne than a pink, but in the pan it does look pretty pink. So it definitely looks different swatched compared to in the pan. Next up, we have a few bronze shades. All the way to the left is Cold Blooded from the ColourPop palette, and then these are two outer eyelid shades from the Natasha Denona palette. They are all very different. The Natasha Denona ones are definitely much more brown, and that Cold Blooded shade is much cooler toned and more silver toned. Here are some more swatches. This is Slated from the ColourPop palette, and then from the Natasha Denona palette I have two inner corner shades, and then in the middle I have a center eyelid shade. As you can see, obviously the formulation is much different. These Natasha Denona shades are more metallics, whereas this ColourPop shade is definitely more sparkly and glittery. And I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but the ColourPop shade definitely has more of like a pinky taupe undertone, whereas these Natasha Denona shades, this one is very silver, and then these two have more of a gold undertone. So these are definitely all very different. Here are the last set of swatches, which are all matte shadows. This is Pebble Beach from the ColourPop palette. This is the crease shade from the Natasha Denona Glam palette, and then this is the blend shade from the Natasha Denona palette. So as you can see, Pebble Beach and that crease shade are pretty spot on similar. I feel like they look a little bit different on camera, but in person they're pretty much the same. And then for these dark colors, this is the Bedrock shade from the ColourPop palette. This is the Smoke shade from the Natasha Denona palette, and this is the Lash Line shade from the Natasha Denona palette. So Bedrock is almost like in the middle of these two shades. It's a little bit lighter from that Lash Line shade, but it is a little bit darker from the Smoke shade, so it's kind of right in the middle. All right, let's get right into this. You just saw that the swatches of these palettes are not exactly the same. So I am going to try to do my best to do the same look on both eyes and really just see how these shadows perform and compare to each other. But obviously I won't be able to do like the exact same look. I'm just going to do the best that I can. So I'm going to do the ColourPop on this eye and the Natasha Denona right on this eye. And I would like to note that I have a bunch of brushes. I'm going to be using completely different brushes on both eyes, so we will not have any cross-contamination, nothing that can sway the color payoff or the performance of the shadows. All right, so I zoomed you guys in quite a bit. The only thing I have on my lids right now are concealer, which I use basically as a primer when I did the rest of my face, and I did set that concealer with a translucent powder, so I'm just gonna go right into the colors. So I'm gonna start by going in with Pebble Beach in the ColourPop palette and just putting that right into the crease. I'm then gonna go in with my crease shade from my Natasha Denona palette and also do the same thing and just apply that in my crease. So right off the bat, comparing these two shades, Pebble Beach to the Natasha Denona crease shade, I will say that the Natasha Denona powder is smoother. It definitely feels like more finely milled. I know we usually use that term when it comes more to like setting powders, but this powder is definitely softer and it definitely applies better. So as you can see, that Natasha Denona one is much darker. Like I said, it's softer and you definitely get more color payoff, but I am going to try to put a little bit more of the Pebble Beach just to try to match the eyes as best as possible. I'm just applying that second layer, and I did notice that the Natasha Denona definitely has more fallout. Like I said, it's just a softer powder. Although fallout is annoying, I do think it is somewhat necessary because, like I said, the formulation is just a little bit softer and it's a little bit more pigmented. I do want to make this look a little smoky, so I'm going to go right into this Bedrock shade, and I'm just going to apply it to my outer V and my outer crease. So I already know, since I've already used the Natasha Denona palette, that the dark shade in there is going to be much more opaque and pigmented than this Bedrock shade. So there's the Bedrock shade. From the Natasha Denona, I am going to mix the Lash Line and the Smoke shade. I'm also just going to put that in the same spot. The Natasha Denona is definitely much smoother and easy to blend. And you can see, I mean, I did mix two shades, but you can still see like that difference in color payoff. I actually like the way the ColourPop one is looking better because this is definitely a little dark, and I definitely have to blend that in a little bit more because it is more pigmented, but you can definitely see the difference in color payoff. Now I'm going in with more Pebble Beach on the ColourPop side, and I'm just going to blend those two colors together. And I'm doing the same thing with the Natasha Denona crease shade. So this is how it's looking. I will say, because the Natasha Denona shadows are darker and more pigmented, I feel like when I went in with that crease shade, it almost took away a little bit from that darkness. Whereas on the ColourPop side, it looks more blended, it looks more even because that Pebble Beach shade is not as pigmented, if that makes sense. So it didn't take away from that Bedrock shade, if that makes sense. I think I'm gonna leave this how it is. I'm gonna start playing with these shimmers. So I'm gonna go in with Cold Blooded from the ColourPop palette right on my finger. I'm just going to apply it sort of like in the center, but keeping it on the outside of the lid. That is pigmented, wow. I went in with my finger, but I did not put a lot, and wow, that is beautiful. When I swatched Cold Blooded, I compared it to these two shadows, this shadow right here and this shadow right here. But now that I'm looking at the palette, I actually think it's quite similar to this center eyelid shade right here. I'm gonna pick up this with my middle finger, let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see that they're more similar. So I'm gonna go in with that shade and just do the same thing and pack it on. So I think as far as pigmentation, these are pretty equal, but they're different finishes. So the Natasha Denona is more of a metallic, whereas Cold Blooded, you can see, definitely has more sparkles and is more of a shimmer shade. Now for my inner eyelid, if you will, I'm gonna go in with the Pink Snake Eyes shade and just apply that right there. That's interesting because in the pan it looks like way more pink. It doesn't really look that pink at all. It definitely has like a pinky undertone, but it's more of like a silver. From the Natasha Denona palette, I'm gonna go in with this Inner Corner shade, which also has like that pink, light pink undertone, and I'm just gonna take that on my pinky, which is honestly a little difficult, and apply that on the inside. So on the eyes, that Inner Corner shade and the Snake Eye shade actually look pretty similar. What I will say is that the Natasha Denona shade, that Inner Corner shade, is much more like refined. And like I said before, these shadows just seem more like finely milled, if that makes sense. Like this Inner Corner shade definitely has like specks of glitter and it's more of like a shimmer, but it's not as intense. It's a little bit more refined, if you can see. So now I'm gonna go in with some blending brushes. I'm not gonna add any more product yet. I just wanna go in and blend the shadows out and see how they look. So I do wanna close my eyes just so you can see how these shadows look blended out, how they look compared to each other. And right off the bat, I don't know. Like, I feel like the Natasha Denona shadows overall performed better. They blended out easier. But I kind of like the way the ColourPop looks more. I don't know, the ColourPop, I had to use more effort to blend it out, but it looks a little bit more blended, I guess because I did put more effort in. I don't know, I'm just liking the ColourPop a little bit more. I'm definitely liking the shimmers in the ColourPop a little bit more. They definitely give more of like a pop, more of a punch, if you will. And it's funny because usually I don't like any chunks of glitter or something too sparkly, but the ColourPop, it's really not. I don't have any fallout. It's not big chunks of glitter. The shimmers are actually really beautiful. And I almost wish that the Natasha Denona metallic shades were more shimmery. So from the ColourPop palette, I'm going to take this shade Slated right here. I'm going to take it on a brush, but I am going to tap it out. And then I want to put it right in this inner corner. So this shade definitely has some fallout. It's not that intense, but I definitely think it would have been better if I wet my brush or went in with my finger. So I am gonna wet this a little bit and then add a little bit more. Okay, so I just wet it and I went in with a little bit more, and it definitely performs much better. So right off the bat, I can say that the shimmers in this palette definitely work best going in with your fingers or with a wet brush. So I just wet my brush again, and I'm going into this inner corner shade from the Natasha Denona palette. For my lower lash line, I'm just taking Bedrock from the ColourPop palette and I'm applying that right underneath. And then from the Natasha Denona palette, I am just gonna go in with that lash line shade and do the same thing. Wow, you can really see the difference. The lash line shade in the Natasha Denona palette is definitely darker. On a blending brush, I'm just gonna take Pebble Beach and dust it right underneath. And then I'm doing the same thing with the Natasha Denona crease shade. All right, I'm gonna finish off the eyes with some mascara, put a lip on, and I will be back to share my final thought. All right, I am back, and here is the final look. On my lips, I am using the ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip in the Rattler shade. This is the lip gloss that they released with the Taupe Snake collection, and I'm absolutely loving it. I will quickly say that I did pick up both of the lip liners, and they both do not work for me. They are really light and they look quite gray on my lips. It's kind of weird, but this gloss I'm absolutely loving. All right, so now for the final verdict. Should you splurge or should you save? So although I do ultimately think that the Natasha Denona is better quality, I think it's more blendable. These shades are buttery and smooth. I ultimately do think that you should save, because although I love all of those aspects of the Natasha Denona palette, I ultimately like the way my eyeshadow on this eye with the ColourPop palette looks better. I know that's shocking, like, hello, Natasha Denona, it blends better, it's this, it's easier to use. I don't know, I just like the way that the ColourPop eye came out way better. I think the main difference is that the shimmers in the ColourPop palette are shimmers, whereas the Natasha Denona shimmer shades are kind of more metallics. They don't provide as much of a punch as the ColourPop shades do. As you can see, the ColourPop, you can just see it way more. It's more of a pop, it's brighter, it's more accentuated, if you will, compared to the Natasha Denona. The Natasha Denona is a little bit more toned down, and I don't know, I just definitely say that if you're looking for a really nice cool tone palette, definitely go with the ColourPop. Spend $14, don't spend $65. Obviously, we know that there are much more shades in this palette, but the additional shades that you get are like these browns and these golds, and you probably have it in other palettes already. So ultimately, if you're looking for a really great cool tone palette to do a cool tone eye look, you should pick up the That's Taupe by ColourPop. I'm really, really loving this. The only downside to this is that there is no mirror. I don't understand. Why do they not put a mirror in this? This was $14. It's a little bit more expensive than the regular palette, so I just don't understand why there is no mirror. But anyways, I'm just loving this. And like I said, if you're looking for a really great cool tone palette, definitely pick this up. All right, that is it for today's video. If you like this type of save versus splurge video, please let me know by giving this a thumbs up. And of course, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.